Welcome to Kingdomize, the podcast, where we discuss how to see our lives and our world through a kingdom lens, how to infuse kingdom culture into our families, our workplaces, and our cities, as we all participate in the dream of Jesus to see his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Hey, so welcome back to Kingdomize, the podcast. I am excited today to have a good friend and an incredible world changer with me, Daria Nardozza. Now, Daria and I go way back. I don't know how you define way back, but I'm thinking probably 15 years, Daria, to 24/7 prayer working together back then.
Longer. I've been married for almost 16 years, and we knew each other probably for 20 years because it was well before I was married.
Wow. See, that's what I know about details. No one asked me for details. So we have Daria here. It's going to be an incredible few minutes with her. We are in our Solutionaries series talking about people that are bringing kingdom answers to real world problems, to our cities, to our nations. And I'm telling you, Daria and the group she's connected with, there's not many better on the planet that are doing it. I'm telling you. So this is going to be fantastic. As I just mentioned, we've known each other for a few years through 24/7 Prayer Canada. But now she's part of a group. She's a co-founder, executive director, and chief, I love this, chief connections officer with City Leaders Collective. City Leaders Collective. It's a global and city network for leaders, people who bring together churches, nonprofits, civic leaders, other sectors to seek the flourishing of their cities. Daria, you're talking my language here. It's fantastic. So Daria's no stranger to this. She started a network back in 2011 in Montreal, which is still going, called the West Island Network. She started exegeting her city at that point, working with a gentleman named Glenn Smith, who is a guru in all things city transformation. As I've already mentioned, she's on the board of 24/7 Prayer Canada. She's a director again, or will be again this year, the West Island Network. Daria has a Bachelor of Religious Education and Counseling, a Master in Global Urban Leadership, and currently a doctoral candidate in transformational leadership. How amazing is this? And so she's smart, she's educated, she's a family lady, she's changing cities, and her main thing is relational connection. And so this is going to be great. Daria, thanks for taking the time today to be with us. And I should mention, sorry, I missed this, Daria is married to her husband, Matt, a high school teacher and a musician. And they have one son named Gabriel. So Daria, welcome today. We're glad you're with us on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here. That was quite the introduction.
Well, I only touched on like a few things that you do. I could have spent the entire time saying how amazing you are. I could have done that. So we're glad you're here. I am really excited about this, and I shared this with you that I didn't know the transition. Well, it's not really a transition. Leading the West Island group there that you started to connecting and help starting the City Leaders Collective. So that's amazing. I'm looking forward to that. But let's not go there first. We really on our podcast, we want to hear your story, who you are, what you do, and why. We know your name now, Daria Nardozza, so that's good. We know you're married. That's fantastic. So let's go back a little bit in your history. Who are you? Give us a little background.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Great to be here with you guys. Born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I did not grow up in a Christian family, but at the age of 16, my grandmother was a Christian and just, I think, prayed a lot for us grandchildren. And at 16, finally just said, okay, God, if you're real, I'm doing this. And went all in at that point in my life. It was a pretty big 180.
Yeah.
17, I went away to Bible school to try to figure out who God was because I literally had no idea. I was the really lost one in Bible college trying to figure, didn't even know the difference between the Old and New Testament when I showed up there at 17. And so, and I just fell in love with God and the church and felt called to leadership and ministry in the church and my city. And that's a little bit about how I got here, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Did you have other friends connected to the church and stuff? Like you mentioned your grandmother was really instrumental. Like were there other friends going, Daria, you're a heathen. Come on. Like what else was happening or no?
No, actually, I really, there's not many Christians in Quebec. And and they were very hard to find. Even in my grade 11 year was my last year of high school that I had my big 180. And I remember I went to Christian camp. When my parents got divorced, actually, when I was 10 and 11, we went away to my grandmother's for the summer. She lived 6 hours away from us, and that's where we learned about God for the first time. And it was like going back there was where I would go find God again. And so at 16, I went back and I worked at the camp because I had to figure out who God was.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home after at 17 and like having to start grade 11, my last year of high school, and being like, I don't have any Christian friends.
Okay.
Who am I? And then I did find one eventually, and he just so happened to sit next to me in French class because we had the same like last letter of our last name or like last name. And he had the same experience that summer where he had like just had this camp come to Jesus moment. And then it was really like, that's why I went to Bible school, was I just felt like I needed to get away from my home and find Christian friends and community. And when I came back, though, I did find a Christian community. And that was great.
So Bible college, what happens after Bible college then?
Yeah, and then I came home. That's actually when I met you, started 24/7 stuff, read Red Moon Rising, and that really transformed my life. And and that's when you guys were doing 24/7 work in Brantford, and that's how we connected. And then I went on to do my graduate work. I was actually going to do my graduate work in counseling, and my pastor said, "No, Daria, you are too apostolic and entrepreneurial to be a counselor. How about you can?" And then he introduced me to Glenn Smith, and that's when I decided to do my graduate work in global urban ministry. So studying the social effects of globalization and urbanization and what churches could be doing better to see their city transformed.
Love that.
So
Love that.
That was my graduate work, and then it was during that time, actually in 2007, that I exegeted my first community, which was the downtown borough of Montreal. And I think that's what really gave me a heart for cities. And I think too, growing up in a pretty broken home, where my dad struggled with alcoholism, and it was just not like an easy life growing up. Food insecurity, just a tough upbringing. I really had a heart to see the church serve the community in a way that people were there for me and helped us as a family get through. And so how could I and the church kind of do that for our community as well?
Yeah. Really good. You rushed by there, Glenn Smith and exegeting cities. So I don't want to go deeply. It's not about Glenn and or necessarily exegeting cities, but talk a bit about Glenn, what he was doing at the time. And then talk about, I want to go deeply later into exegeting cities, but just kind of touch on that for a minute.
Yeah, so Glenn was the executive director of Christian Direction at the time, and was very close to Ray Bakke. And the two of them kind of coined this term. I think there was a few others in the room. He's told the story a couple times, coined this term, community exegesis. But so he was leading in Montreal at the time, and he supervised my graduate work and has been a dear mentor for 20 years. We still talk regularly. He still texts me on Fridays to say, "I'm praying for you," every Friday. So he's a dear, dear man with a big heart and vision for cities, and has been a mentor to me for a long time. So he taught me all about community exegesis, and which is basically the way we exegete scripture, where we look at the culture and the context and the history and the meaning and it's like, how do we do that to our cities? How do we look at the culture and context and listen to our city and look at the demographics and the data? How do we then prayerfully consider how we serve our city out of that posture of knowing our city was sort of the idea behind community exegesis.
Yeah, love that. Really good, really good. So you've got saved at 16, camp at 17, and then Bible college. Now you're with Glenn, you're with 24/7 prayer where we met. So keep going on your story in terms of like, you're doing that for a while. Now you're into the City Leaders Collective, like fill in the gap there.
Yeah. So in 2011, I supervised a community exegesis of the West Island, which was really exciting because that's the neighborhood I grew up in. And so when that project came to be, I was like, yes, I will wholeheartedly supervise that. we launched it and this study to a bunch of the pastors and the people we interviewed. From there, a group of pastors started to pray together to say, okay, here's this report on our city. Like, we kind of know the needs, we know who's here, we know what's happening. It's this nice 50-page report with pictures. And so, yeah, a group of pastors started praying together consistently, and they prayed together for 4 years until the point where they said, okay, we've been praying together for 4 years, but we need to what can we do?
Yeah.
And so they hired me to catalyze a network called the West Island Network. And I actually at the time thought I invented the idea. I'd never heard of this, but
Yeah.
I had such a heart for prayer, mission, justice, and unity. And I saw this job description and I was like, yes, I will do this. But I've never heard of this and I don't know what I'm doing, but I will do it. So in 2016, I helped catalyze the West Island Network, a network of churches working together for the good of the community. I did that for about 5 years, which was great, amazing. And saw God do some amazing things through the unity of the church, working together and working with the community. In that time, I facilitated a poverty reduction roundtable, food security roundtables. I was on the board of directors of our Table de Quartier, our community roundtable. I was very involved with the community and very involved with the churches, and just tried to bring those two things together. And help us all work better together for good. Then I had the opportunity to do this work across Canada with an organization called City Movement Canada and Waybase.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few years across Canada, still stayed involved with the West Island Network on the leadership team, but was no longer leading it. And then unfortunately, Waybase and City Movement shut down.
Right.
But it was actually in that time that I had started my doctoral work. I really felt called to research networks in cities and the unity of the church and collaboration in cities for the flourishing of cities.
Yeah.
And it was through my pursuit in my doctoral work that I met Eric Swanson and Rob Kelly, and a group of people doing this work across the US that I had no idea existed. And when Waybase and City Movement Canada shut down, Rob and Eric were in the process of launching City Leaders Collective. And so we basically came together and said, let's do this together. And make this North American with a vision to serve cities globally.
Yeah, love that, love that. So before we hit the City Leaders Collective and go there, I actually want to go back to the Montreal thing. You talked about roundtables, did poverty, food insecurity. Tell a couple stories from that. Just tell us a couple stories that are your favorite stories of the churches working together in unity, prayer, or actually outreach. Just tell a couple stories of what really touched you and moved you.
Yeah, I think I saw the biggest impact of momentum when I would go to the pastor's prayer and got to know all the pastors. But what I was struggling with was that, a lot of pastors in Quebec are bivocational, way understaffed, don't have time to actually get involved in the community. And so in my kind of frustration with that, but also I totally get it because you guys are totally overworked. I said to them, could you recommend someone from your church who just they're the outreach person. They do all they have a heart for the community. They're very involved. I want each of you to recommend someone who's that person in your church. And so I formed what we called the CATE team, the Community Action and Impact Team. And it was made up of...
Let me just stop you there, because that's fantastic. But in our scenario, we created a CAT team, a community action team. And I'm only laughing because Bruce Mann, who's part of the group, he hates cats. So I intentionally created an acronym that every time I said it, it would bug him. But anyway, so yours is the CATE team is way better, more spiritual too.
I think Bruce would like that better too, right? Yeah.
You're right. Sorry, I interrupted. Yeah. But sometimes for a joke, it's worth it.
Yeah. So that was the CATE team. Yeah. And it was 10 or 11 people from 9 or 10 churches. And we came all together and we're okay, what's God doing in our churches, in our community? How do we work together for the flourishing of our community? That's when I really saw change happen. And so these leaders that, they went back to their church, we planned a big give event where we all did different service things on the same day and did it together, but in our own church setting and different types of events. And then we all came together. I still remember the night we were in someone's living room and we're what's God inviting us to do together as a church? At the time, there was a lot of refugees coming into Quebec. About 98% of refugees coming into Canada were coming in through like the Quebec Montreal border. And so a lot of our churches were experiencing this, and there was a lot of community groups trying to figure out what to do. And so we like did a whole refugee night, and like our K team was in like a weekend would totally furnish an apartment for like a refugee family, and churches were getting involved with like helping refugees resettle. And I remember one of our churches like had a baby shower for this new refugee Muslim family that had just like come into Quebec pregnant. And so, yeah, that was one of my, I think, favorite West Island Network
That's
stories.
perfect. Love that. Love that. And it's interesting. Listening to you, it reminds me so much of the journey we had here in Brantford about the concentric circles of getting people involved, right? It's like somebody gets a dream and then it affects your whole life. And then there's a small group of people and it's like, well, how do I do this with more? And yeah, really good. Well, really, really good, Daria. Excellent. So let's go on and let's talk a bit about a City Leader Collective. You already talked about connecting with Eric and Rob and now this vision for North America and beyond. So what is the collective? And just kind of dive into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so we're, our vision is really, because I think a lot of people like me in our network thought we invented this idea. And so it's a matter of just bringing us all together to learn from each other in the same way that I like came to Brantford and learned from you guys. I remember Dave came and spoke at our Montreal, and I was sort of discovering all these like city transformation movements, networks, that we didn't know existed. And so what we are working to do is just try to find those people and those networks that are doing something, and connect them, help them find community and relationship to, friends for the journey, we'd say. So that's one thing we do. We coach them. We have a coaching framework, and coaching programs. So that's part of what we do. And then we have created, Rob and I have been doing research on what this whole thing is as part of our doctoral work. And so we've created a toolbox of like content and tools, and from our research trying to like just solve for different content and tool that is needed to help a city network or city movement get started. So those are the three things that we do.
One of the phrases I've heard you use, and I've heard Rob say before, about it being a network of networks. So how many groups are you working with right now?
Yeah, so there's about 125 city networks in North America. And I wouldn't say like we started them. We're helping start some right now, but we wouldn't, these are ones we have found that we are learning from and learning together, and sort of creating a platformed ecosystem for us all to do this work better together.
I love that. That's so, so good. So one of our dialogues that we have with everyone that we speak with, whether it's a podcast or whatever, we talk about, this is going to be my shameless plug for our book, in case you're wondering. We wrote this book together called Just Kingdomize It. And under each category, every chapter, we talk about rethink, restore, reform, right? So we want people to think differently about what they're doing and why. We want to restore it's all about the kingdom. So restoring, kind of a reset back to the original plan Jesus had. So hit that reset button, and what was Jesus trying to do? And reform, reform being a reformation, like it needs to go from thinking to doing bigger in terms of let's reform society, let's bring kingdom everywhere. How does that fit with Daria? How does that fit with City Leaders Collective? And what does that look like if it does fit?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to help people reform or change or would just be this idea of churches and community organizations working in silos. And so we want to see people working together. We believe that when people work together, greater transformation could happen. We believe this is what Jesus prayed before he was crucified, that the church would be one, and that through the unity of the church, we could see our cities transformed. So yeah, I think that's what we're like. If I could see something changed in my lifetime, it would be to see churches, community organizations working together, not in isolation, not in silos, for the flourishing of their city.
Yeah. And you've and for the inside scoop on people listening, we send out notes to people and they send us back notes as we're talking. And you gave some great answers. And so I don't want to run over these, but you talked about what happens when Reformation happens, or rather Reformation happens when Do you have those notes in front of you? Or I know I do, but reformation happens when, because you just hit on the first point about competing or collaborating.
Yeah, churches stop competing and start collaborating.
Say that again for those at the back.
Yeah. When churches stop competing and start collaborating.
Yeah. That's so connected to John 17, like you said, right? That you and we're one. So yeah, sorry. I just felt like that was so significant because that is, if that doesn't happen, like let's use your Montreal example, then the pastors aren't going to release somebody from their church to you to do your Kate team or cat team because they don't get it, right? But that was, I don't want people to miss that point of what you just said about the significance of there is one church in the city, right? So really good. So what else? Reformation happens when, give me another example.
Yeah, when I think my other point was leaders stop operating in isolation and begin sharing responsibility together. You see amazing things happen. And then I think too, when the church shows up to actually serve, and create and have that posture of serving and working with their community. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stories about how I've seen transformation happen through this posture of willing to work with, not to, not for, but with the community. I mean, it's amazing.
Not to, not for, but with. I love that. We all know what those words mean, but explain why you said it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think churches have had this could have this like savior syndrome, or like we're going to go and save our community. We're going to go do something to them or go do something for them because that's what they need, is us to do that to them or for them. But when you actually show up and have a posture of with them, and because let's be honest, I mean, in Canada anyway, the community development happening is way better than what the church is doing.
Right.
And so when you show up to say, hey, like, I want to be part of this roundtable because you guys are all a bunch of organizations that care that people eat in our neighborhood, and you are all working together to make sure people are eating. Like, the collective impact model across Canada is incredible and being really well used. But then when the church shows up at the table, I mean, when I showed up at the table, they said, and I said who I was, and they said to me, you mean the church cares about food security? We didn't know the church cared about food security, or we didn't know the church cared about the poor, because no one's ever showed up to say we care.
Right.
And then when you just show up and have this posture of serving and working with them, I mean, the stories are unending.
Love that. I'm sure you've heard of the Dream Center down in LA, and Matthew Barnett, who runs that, he says, whoever shows up and stays the longest wins, or I like whoever shows up and serves the longest wins. And so we're winning with them. And so I'm always excited when church people who get serving in the city go, hey, there's people here that love our city too. It's like, yeah, they've been doing it a long time. So I love how you said that, the with, and the phrase that you said about being a trusted partner for common good. That's so important, because there is some us versus them in our cities, and to be able to do that is to just show up and serve with them. Is that a fair way to explain that from your perspective as well?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really good. So what I'd like to do maybe for the next few minutes, Daria, let's go a little deeper on exegeting cities. I know you've got a framework that you use both with, you've created, you're working on it for your doctorate right now, but also with City Leader Collective. So go a little deeper on that for us. Can you do that?
Yeah. So community exegesis frameworks, there has been many. Glenn Smith's 20 steps would be the most probably commonly used and often used. But actually his first 10 steps are really focused on community exegesis, and the last 10 have always been a bit more focused on church planting. There's also a man named Dr. Bruce Friesen. I think that's his name. Bruce Jackson. Sorry, Bruce Friesen. We just talked about him.
That's our guy.
Dr. Bruce,
He'll be good.
yeah. Bruce Jackson.
I'll show that you brought him up.
I took a community exegesis doctoral course with him, and I loved he had 4 eyes that we would work through, and those are, I have found a way to put Glenn's 20 steps into Bruce's 4 eyes, and that's what I now teach.
Okay.
But it starts with inspiration, and what I coach people to do is start with prayer. Start with examining your own heart, prayer walking your community, just prayerfully inviting God into the process, and yeah, just starting with prayer. The second would be information. The second eye is information, and that is really around history. Like, go to the library, take out the books. With the internet now, we could do a lot of research online on the history of your city. And then second would be demographics. So there's 7 to 10 key demographics I would tell people to look at in a city, and there's many more you could look at that you might want to compare and contrast that to the larger area, the country. Things will always stand out to you when you look at data. And so, yeah, history and demographics. So it gives you a really good understanding of like the information in your city. And then the third eye is incarnation. And that is actually creating questions and going out and listening. So, and in that process, you could almost create an asset map. I think asset-based community development is really helpful in our work as well, and a great tool. But listening, like really, you've prayed, you've looked at the information, but now you're going out and talking to people, and you are interviewing, asking good questions, and listening. And from there, sorry,
Right,
yeah.
no. So who specifically would you listen to? Like, I mean, like you're going out to interview and talk to who?
Yeah, great question. You're talking to, Ray Bakke would say if you do 50 interviews, you'll know more about anything and everyone in your city than anybody else. So if you could do 50, amazing. And I'd say you want to interview anyone from like the mayor and key pastors, key leaders, business leaders, teachers, educators, like all the different spheres. If you could do 50, I think if you do 10, you just have to like break it down to different types of people for sure. And I remember Dr. Bruce Jackson also saying like, don't just interview those people of influence, but like also interview the mailman who sees things in a different way, and may have insights into your neighborhood in a way that the mayor doesn't, let's say. So yeah, you don't just want to interview those people of power and authority, but you also want to like interview people who see the neighborhood.
I love that. I love it. So we're going to inspire, we're going to inform, we're going to incarnate. Where are we at that? What's number 4?
Then you discern your involvement. So the fourth eye is involvement. And once you've done those 3 things, you get a pretty good sense of like, okay, what's God doing in my city? Where is he inviting the church? Where is he inviting our church? Where is he inviting me to join in to make a difference and work with? That's where I usually teach about all the 2, 4 with, part, but how is he inviting us to work with the community?
Really, really good. Really, really good. So in your model, so maybe we'll use the West Island Network as an example. When do you do the exegesis? So different people say to me different things, and I've got an opinion, and opinions are whatever. But at what stage along the way do you do it early? Do it halfway through? Like, how many relationships do you build? So on the network, you said, I got a bunch of pastors here. The pastors release some of their people to the Cape team. Like, at what point you go, what we need to do now is this? Where does it fit in your continuum?
The community exegesis?
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience, it's actually always been what has birthed a network.
Okay.
But that's definitely not from our research the way networks have been birthed.
Right.
But it's the only way I've ever done it, probably because of my influence from Glenn.
Right.
And I actually just wrote a community exegesis of my city. We just launched it because there's nothing happening in my Vaudreuil, the city I live in right now. And so that's what I'm using to launch this collaborative effort in my city. But I think a network, I mean, Eric Swanson would, any, person he'd meet with that wants to start a network or a movement in their city, he'd say, go have coffee with 50 people and come back to me.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So there's the listening bit, but then sometimes it takes starting a network to then decide, okay, as a group of churches, we're going to like do this community exegesis to learn our community better. It just depends on where a network or movement is starting from.
Yeah. So inspire, inform, and incarnate. It's kind of almost step 2 and 3 together. Is that right? So the inform is the history and the demographics, which is part of the exegesis, right?
Yeah.
And then the incarnate is the questions, the listening. So that would be the next part. And then you got inspired, you got the information. Now you're going to go, we're not just collecting information here. We're doing it on purpose to go do something. Is that fair?
To go get involved. Yeah, to go get involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really good.
And I think in the past, like when we've done community exegesis, like when I did it with Glenn, it was like a whole summer project, 20 hours a week, three interns doing it. Like it was big. And what I'm trying to create too now is a way for someone to do this in like maybe 30 hours total, you know, where they could also just do 10 interviews, you know, and now with data being so accessible, when I did this in 2007, we had like an Excel spreadsheet with 2,000 lines and we're trying to figure out data and it would take us weeks. But now, like, you don't have to do that. Like data is so easy to access and you can look at it in an hour and figure it out. So, yeah.
Excellent. So, Daria, you've mentioned people along the way as we've been talking, and all of us have influential people in our life. You've mentioned Ray and Glenn. So just kind of tell us about those people that inspired you. So in a couple things I want to add to this, if they fit, is that we always like to talk to people about when did you go from church is normal, I'm just doing church, and whether you ever did, maybe you didn't, church is normal, to, man, we've got to be part of the solution in our city. So I think they might fit together in terms of how that happens. So might not. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't think church was ever normal for me.
Right. Okay.
I didn't grow up in church. So like when I became a Christian, it was like, this is what Jesus said to do. This is what we're going to do.
So, okay. So let me stop you right there. So I've got a new way to do evangelism. Keep people out of the church for a long time and then do what Daria did. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're listening, new evangelism train. Here we go.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't it true though? Like there's this soccer mom that we invited to Alpha. She did Alpha, and she's like now evangelizing all the soccer moms on our team, you know, and because she's just so excited about who God is that she wants to share it. And now I'm leading a Bible study with soccer moms, but it's like that came from just her newfound excitement in God who just transformed her life. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I've been doing this for 25 years now. And how do we keep that excitement that I had and I still have, but like that I had when I was 17 and just became a Christian. And yeah.
Yeah, really good. So is there anything else you want to say about Ray or Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn and Ray have just really definitely inspired. I mean, I did my graduate work under Ray, like with Ray Bakke, and I actually got to take a few classes with him. He passed away about 4 or 5 years ago, but I had the opportunity to go study New York City with him and like just to understand his perspective. And I went to his house to study church history in like a small group of people. And so just having that experience with him. And I remember I interviewed him in my last class. My last graduate course was planning the afternoon program of Lausanne 2010 in Cape Town. And so I did that with Glenn, and Glenn made me interview like 10 people that were part of this Lausanne movement. And I still remember sitting in the back of my fiance at the time's actually Civic, interviewing Ray Bakke while driving him to the airport. And I asked him, like, what's the future of the church in cities? And he said that they're gonna need to learn to work together with like different people of different faith and different like government and all these. And I remember feeling like so like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean? Tell me more. Like, because my experience is that churches don't even work together.
Right.
So you're saying that churches are going to have to learn to work with people of different faith and government and community organizations when they won't even work with each other. And Ray said that to me, I remember in 2009. And I remember being like, that shaped, you know, everything, you know, when I was starting a network of churches working together, like I had Ray's voice in my head. And then as I did it and messed up, I had to call Glenn and be like, now Glenn, what do I do? And so, yeah, those two men were just so informative in my younger years and definitely understanding this type of work.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned along the way, Ray talking about the future, and it seems like every time I talk to you or with you or whatever, you're a pretty optimistic person. And I'm sure you've seen some challenges along the way. Like starting networks, helping people start networks. It's no easy task. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So why Why is Daria so optimistic? Help me with this one.
You should ask my husband about that. I'm not always.
Well, yeah, yeah,
No, I mean, I remember a few years ago, I was in a leadership program and I was asked the question, what would you do if you knew you were going to fail and you would do it anyway? And like, what like gives you that much
yeah,
excitement in life? And I think that's where I really had to define like, what am I called to do and what am I going to do with my life, even if I completely fail at
yeah,
it? And actually at the time, it felt like a very real question to me because we'd gone through many years of infertility and those last 2 years I'd gone like all in to have another baby and like changed my diet, did all the natural things, did IVF, did everything, and it didn't work. And so it failed. And I remember reflecting on that though, feeling like I would not have changed a minute of those 2 years because of how the process transformed my life.
right.
And even though it didn't work, like I don't regret it. And so I feel like on my deathbed when I'm about to die, what do I feel like I want to give my life to, even though it's going to be really hard? Yeah, and I think those three things, even though they are really hard, is the unity of the church and cities, mentoring leaders. There's I just have a heart to, yeah, I've seen some pretty bad leadership in the church and I've been part of some pretty bad leadership in the church. And I want church leaders to be great leaders. And so that is something I also feel really passionate about giving my life to. And the third thing that gives me hope and optimism, which is also really hard, is being a female leader in the church is very hard. And I never saw it before. Like when I felt called to be a leader in the church, I didn't even know what that looked like because I'd never seen a woman lead. And I want to change that. Like I want to give women a role model who feel called to lead in the church. So that's sort of what like gets me excited and keeps me optimistic is working towards those three things.
I love that. In the notes you sent me, which I loved as well, and I highlighted, you said, I learned to go from frustrated putty to a self-obsessed
Mm-hmm.
gladiator. So that's amazing. And as I listen to you and every time we talk, Gary, I just want you to know that I feel like you will be that for other women, right? You already are, right? And not just, clearly you're leading other, just leaders in general, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
women can look to you and go, that's amazing. I saw that. I mean, it was a few years ago we saw each other in Ottawa, but I was sitting in the back of the room just so proud of you. It was so great. Yeah. So glad to see you're not frustrated putty anymore.
Yeah, well, hey, it's still what I sometimes revert back to feeling like frustrated, putty, trying to fit into everyone else's mold. But I know what God's called me to be is a self-expressed gladiator and to have a voice. So I work on that every day.
We could spend a lot of time there and I don't have it, but that's really good. And so you mentioned
Mhm.
along the way, the inspiration from your grandmother, and I know you and your
Mhm.
sister are very, very close. So you've got some good examples there as well. So often if we get the time, we ask the question, what's the best question you've never been asked before?
Mhm.
And I loved what you said. You talked about what does this work require me to become? So,
Mhm.
and you've always been a very relational person. That was a huge part of 24/7, huge part of what you're doing now. So let's touch on that. We've only got a couple minutes, but touch on that. What does this work require me to become?
Yeah, I think what I've been learning is when you have a vision, which I do have a big one, it's asking that question, that this idea of becoming whoever it is that you need to become in order to accomplish whatever it is that you're committed to doing. And so I constantly think, who do I have to be to do this work? And it requires patience. It requires being a trustworthy leader. And how do I be trustworthy? How do I even learn to trust myself and trust God in this journey? Um, it requires being okay with ambiguity and releasing control. And I think too the biggest thing that I've had to learn is rest. I think I naturally am just very driven and want to work harder and get more done. And I think what God's invitation is to just like sometimes you just need to rest and trust me because I'm already doing this and I'm before you. I've gone before you and I'm working this out and you need to let me, and yeah. So being a person of rest as well.
Yeah, really good. Bruce Mann, one of our
Mhm.
partners here, he under this banner, he talks about, this city transformation idea. It wasn't yours; it's God's. So you can rest in that, and you don't have to make it all up. You can.
No.
And I love how you said that it's about becoming whoever you need to be to do what you're committed to do or what God's calling you to do. I love that. I think that is fantastic. Well, Daria, we have almost exhausted our time here. How do people get a hold of you? They need to. People need to get a hold of Daria, City Leaders Collective. So much wisdom, so much experience, so many things ongoing. How do people get a hold of you and or City Leader Collective?
Yes, it's like we're very in startup mode. It's our we're just in our second year operating as a registered charity. So we don't even have social media yet. We are working on it though. Part of the plan of the year. But cityleaderscollective.org is our website that we're looking to update as well.
Right there. Look, it's right there.
Yeah. So that's our website, or Daria or info@cityleaderscollective.org would be a way to reach us. We do a monthly call. If you want to learn about what this is, you could join our mailing list and we'll send you that link to join our monthly call where you can learn about, what our city network leaders doing.
Amazing. And what happens on that call?
So we start with Eric Swanson shares some gems, and Eric is a gem and he's brilliant. He wrote the book To Transform a City, and he's just really, really wise. So he always shares a little gem at the beginning. And then we have a 10 by 10, which is a city network leader who shares in 10 slides for 10 minutes what they do and how they do it. And then there's some Q&A. And then we also we call it the Genius Bar, where we have an organization or person that really helps city network leaders win at their day job, or a network leader that's done something really amazing that we want to just highlight to inspire other cities, leaders, or organizations. So, and then we also have our friend Chris Chan, who's an IT tech guy, does a little 5 minutes on technology and how that could help serve your network as well.
Excellent.
Or your work.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it's very full. We record it. You can get a recording of it too after if you miss it. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Daria, what a pleasure to be with you again and to hear a bit more of your story. I just want to thank you for your time. I want to say, for those listening, honestly, you need to get a hold of Daria. You need to get a hold of this group. I can't think of a better group in the world. And I work for Kingdomize Global, so take that. I can't think of a better group in the world that is doing what they're talking about. These guys are ladies as well. Are solutionaries. They are helping people bring solutions to their cities by collaborating, by working together. And that's amazing. That's what we want you to do. And so find a way to do it in your context. Get a hold of Daria, or get a hold of us, get a hold of somebody that's just a couple steps down the road more than you are, that can help you and bring you along, because that's what it matters. We want to see the kingdom of God expressed everywhere in our world. And so Daria can help you. This City Leaders Collective, they'll help you. So thanks for tuning in this week to Kingdomize, the podcast. Thanks for joining us today on Kingdomize, the podcast. Let's keep the discussion going throughout the week on our socials or on our website, kingdomizeglobal.com. Contact us today to see how we can walk together to see more of God's kingdom in your city as it is in heaven.